What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about the mother on Facebook Live who was criticizing the looks of her infant son. All right. And this video is going to be more or less a rant, by the way. Just a bit of a, FYI slash warning there. All right. But yeah, this video I believe, has gone viral, actually. And nothing goes viral coincidentally. Everything that goes viral goes viral for a reason. I just want you to know that, all right? So just, think about that for a second. But I also, okay, first let me talk about the lady, all right? So I don't really think the video was necessary, and I do think that the mother probably is like a low frequency ratchet. They should have never given you niggas social media. Cause think about this, like 10 years ago, this shit wouldn't even be happening. All right. If we were back in like 2009, or, this shit wouldn't even be happening, you know. So yeah, they should have never given you niggas Facebooks and Twitters and YouTubes and shit. Goddamn. Should have given you niggas some damn books to read. But nah, y'all ain't gonna do that. But that's another story, alright? So she's on Facebook Live and she's criticizing the looks of her son. Alright. Her son, and some people were triggered by this. And I think the trigger came because of the skin tone that the son has. The son is dark skinned, and I think a lot of people, especially a lot of black women, and as well probably some black men, brown skin, dark skin, black women, and black men, were triggered by that. Even though the woman in the video never mentioned the skin tone of her child, though, but people, they felt like it was implied. It could have been implied. Perhaps it wasn't. I don't know. But to be fair, the woman never mentioned skin tone. But I think that because it triggered a lot of people, people kind of just took it there, right? And I do notice when situations like this come up, I do notice like brown skin and dark skin people, both men and women, being kind of triggered by this sort of a thing. And as well, it happened to a dark skinned infant male child. So I think even the trigger is even bigger for people because I don't want to be petty, and be divisive. But I do feel like if this was a dark skinned infant daughter and this was happening to her, I do think there would be outrage, but I don't think that the outrage would be quite as strong. That's just my personal opinion. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. But hey, that's just what I think. All right. Just respect my opinion, and I can respect your opinion. All right. And we can just agree to disagree, on certain things. And that's another issue that sort of came up too. Should I go into that? Maybe not just yet, but that's something else that's going to come up too in this video. But so yeah, a lot of dark skinned folks were triggered, and perhaps the trigger may come from like a place because sometimes they may have been in situations where they felt like they were mistreated, especially by family members because they were darker skinned. And I have heard that, and situations like that do shock me personally because it's such a foreign concept to me to hear that like playing out in people's families. And I have spoken about this in previous videos too. Just like really being surprised by some of the stories that I've heard from people, some of the stories that people have told me on my channel, You know, so I think when situations like this come up, darker skinned people do feel the need to defend. Well, of course, I wouldn't, knock, a darker skinned black person for wanting to defend their phenotype, right? Of course not. Um, um, but sometimes I do think that, let's switch this around a little bit. If this was a lighter skinned child and the mom was doing this, I feel like, well, it would just be too bad, too sad for the light skinned child. It would just be like, oh, well, it's ugly. Sometimes every light skinned baby ain't pretty. Shit. You know, it's like, well, that's when folks want to be all like talking about, it is what it is, you know, right? And like we've had examples in the media of this, like Blue Ivy, right? Or YG's daughter, right? Riley Curry, even, you know. So it's not. Let's not pretend like light-skinned children and biracial children are exempt from you know fuck shit criticisms like this, And I do have to put the question out there: is it wrong or nah? You know, like is it okay for the light skinned kids to get the criticism, but not the dark skinned kids, or is it okay for both of them to get the criticism, or is it just like, hey, why should we be criticizing children at all, right? Which I can agree with that sentiment. It's not really necessary, and it does kind of come like it kind of gets me to thinking like, what's the motivation behind this type of behavior when it comes to criticizing children's looks, you know? And I think we as just society in general are very much obsessed and over obsessed really with superficial things like looks and whatever. But on the other hand, I do feel like this dark skinned male child will be okay. Either if he grows into his looks, or either if he doesn't grow into his looks, he will be okay, because for men, you know, not as much as riding on looks. But if this was a girl, it would be a different story, because more is riding on her looks because of the way that society is structured and set up, right? But as well, I do see like sometimes the battle cry seems to be a bit louder when brown skin, dark skin males are under attack for their phenotype. I do kind of notice that, right? It seems like the battle cry is louder, like, oh, we gotta defend. But if it's the dark skinned black female and her phenotype's under attack, then if, for some reason, I just don't feel like the battle cry is as strong. Perhaps maybe I'm missing something, but that's just something that I picked up on as well. All right. So yeah, people are triggered, and I'm not shaming people for being triggered, by the way, just in case you may be thinking that, because we all have something that will trigger us, whether it pertains to colorism or just in general. There's something out there that's going to trigger us, like if someone talked bad about your child, said, hey, your child, you know, looks like roadkill or something, that would trigger you, most likely, right? So there's something out there that triggers us, right? So, there's no shame in being triggered, you know. And in regards to black men's response to this, I haven't seen a lot of black men response to this. I did see one black man response to this on YouTube. I was searching for them, but I couldn't really find that many. But I did see one. I won't mention the guy's name, but I'll give a hint as to who he is. He uses the phrase colorism crybabies. All right. I think you may know who I'm talking about. And pretty much his response pretty much was revolving more so around placing the blame on the mother, which is, that's not out of bounds. I think that, yeah, the mother is to blame, you know. But also it's like, well, why are these dudes having kids with these type of women anyway, though, right? Because it seems like, the way that they're portraying the mom, they're making the dad seem like he's just the best thing ever, or at least as not as problematic as she is. And we aren't sure that, we don't know that, right? And she did call him up during that live session too, and say that. And some people felt like it was just a joke, right? It was just one big joke. She gonna love her child regardless of how her child looks, how her son looks. And they gonna laugh about this, ha ha he he, fun in the sun, right? And some people didn't buy that. Some people like, it's not a joke, right? Again, because people were triggered by it, right? And people may feel like that was them, right? They view themselves as that child in the situation, right? Especially black men. Black men may, who were given their 2 cents, may view themselves as being that dark-skinned son. And then some of these black Negroes be, wanting to be like, oh, this is why, black men, years later, end up with like Becky and Selena and Kim Woo and Chong Lee and stuff, right? And to that, I'm like, well, wait a minute though, all right? Because it seems like anytime the dark-skinned sisters come up with their issues about colorism, it's just like, well, you got to get self-esteem all on your own, and that's your responsibility, right? But when it comes to them, then it's like, oh, it's the black woman's responsibility to instill self-esteem in these young black men, right? Which I do think that's a part of it. Both parents, both the mother and the father, I think it is part of their responsibility as parents to do that. But nevertheless, if the dark-skinned sisters got to be responsible for their self-esteem issues and fixing them all on their own, then these dark-skinned men, they need to be responsible for their self-esteem issues and fixing them all on their own. But I guess that's how they fix their self-esteem issues, is by dating outside of the race and going as far away from black women as they possibly can, and having, criticisms of black women via YouTube and saying all types of fuck shit about black women. That's how they perhaps deal with it. But I'm just saying, all right? So yeah, if I do feel like if black men, black men who are responding, they're responding and they're feeling, I feel like they're responding because they felt a hit to their side, right? Just like with that whole H&M Coolest Monkey in the Jungle situation. They responded the way they did because they felt a hit to their side, because they had that young black boy in a hoodie that said Coolest Monkey in the Jungle, right? And they see themselves reflected in that little boy. Just like in this situation, they see themselves reflected in that infant son of hers. But again, I don't want to be petty, but again, if things were switched around and the baby was a female, how would these same black men especially be responding to this situation, right? And as well, let's be honest, let's be real. People do look for any reason to drag black women, especially brown skin and dark skinned black women, right? This community really does look for just any reasons, right? Even if the black woman's just minding her own business, sometimes she'll get dragged, right? And that's another thing too. Skin tone of the mom. The mom said, like, okay, the mom is light skinned actually. In the video, because of the lighting, it may look a little different because she was in the car, but I've seen pictures of her and she's on the lighter side of things. Perhaps she's maybe a safe brown, maybe light skinned, a safe brown perhaps. But nevertheless, she is lighter skinned. And I know some people low-key are trying to make her seem low-key darker than what she is so that they can put it off on, oh, dark-skinned mothers, right? Because I don't ever see specifically light-skinned, mixed, or biracial mothers being held accountable for the colorism, since people are saying that this is colorism, the colorism that they project onto their children. And if it is a light-skinned biracial woman who's doing it, then it's just, oh, it's black women. But if it's the dark-skinned black woman who's doing it, oh, they have to specify, this is a dark-skinned black woman. You know, she ain't like the rest of them, right? We can't just refer to her as a black woman. We got to specify with her so that you know that what she's doing is wrong, and it's, you know, it's because of the fact that she's dark-skinned, right? You know. And another thing, these light-skinned, mixed, and biracial women who get into these whole beauty and the dark-skinned beast relationships. And I know some folks gonna have some problem with that. Pop off in the comment section, all right? But that's what I'm gonna start calling these damn relationships that end up like this shit. Beauty and the dark-skinned beast relationships, all right? Because a lot of times these light-skinned, mixed, and biracial women get into relationships with, like, you know, brown-skinned, dark-skinned men. And then when the kids come, sometimes it's a problem with how the kids look, you know? Didn't we low-key see that just happen recently with Bianca and Damian Prince from the Prince family, and that whole, oh, you know, Bianca wanted her daughter to have green-colored eyes like she does. I'm like, well, did any of your previous kids have green eyes? I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not really familiar with them, but I don't think that's the case though, right? Or that was the case with her previous kids. So I don't know why she was expecting her daughter to have light colored eyes, except maybe she felt like, oh, because it was her daughter that the genes was going to come more from her. I don't know. She doesn't strike me as, you know, being well apt in biology. You know. Then, you know, Neo and his wife, you know, Neo's wife talking about the texture of their son's hair not being, you know, Hawaiian silky like hers, right? And, you know, as well, sometimes even non-black moms do it. They do it too. You know, non-black moms, heck, sometimes, especially these white moms, they'll be calling their mixed children niggers. Like Logic's mom called him niggers, you know. You know, I think there was a video floating around of a white mom calling her biracial daughter a nigger. So it's not just, you know, it's across the board. These beauty and the dark skinned beast relationships, right? They're across the board, right? So they'll get with these dark skinned beasts, you know, because they think they're so beautiful. Shit. And they'll get with these dark skinned beasts, you know, because they, you know, maybe like being put on the pedestal. Perhaps they may like somewhat how they look. You know, they may like, maybe they're just attracted to the skin tone. You know, maybe, you know, the sex is good, whatnot, right? A whole different variety of reasons. But nevertheless, the relationships happen. And I think when the kids come and they're reacting like this, you know, because sometimes some of these women want to claim that they're so pro-black just because they have like a really dark-skinned dude, you know, and they with them. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly being pro-black, all right? Because if that's the case, then a lot of non-black women can say they pro-black, all right? And we already know a majority of non-black women are not pro-black. They are not down for black liberation black social justice, black causes, besides, BBC Matters. That's about it. That's all. That's all the activism that they're gonna be putting forth. All right. Yeah. And I heard somebody posted a picture of her, of that, of the mother's baby daddy, and then some women are like, "Oh, they want to have a kid with him and stuff." Oh boy. I'm like, black women, y'all gotta raise the bar. Y'all really, I do really think there's some sort of an issue, because I swear the bar set really low for black women. Um, but another thing I want to talk about is like this YouTube beef that sort of happened, low key. Maybe I shouldn't call it a beef, but a YouTube situation. All right. So a YouTube user who talks about colorism, very popular on YouTube in the colorism conversation, very much the star of it, right? Y'all know who I'm talking about. So she put out a video about this whole situation with the mother criticizing the looks of her infant son. All right. And in that video, I did notice that she did, like, based on how she was speaking, I felt like she was sort of triggered. Understandably, of course, because she's dark skinned. So, of course she would be triggered by something like that. Even though it didn't happen to a dark skinned, female infant, it did happen to like a dark skinned infant, like a person. So I can understand that, and that's why I can understand some dark skinned women wanting to defend the situation, because it circles back to defending the greater good when it comes to just dark skin in general, right? But yeah, I did notice that she kind of came across as being triggered in the video, and she was holding the mom accountable, and some people felt like, oh, she's not going to hold the mom accountable and stuff like that. And it's like, well, I think the YouTuber, when it comes to colorism, is just like, if you're doing some fuck shit, then you're gonna get called out on it. But people feel like she's giving passes to some people and not to other people, and I just don't really see that. But let me bring it back though. So this YouTube user, who talks about colorism, posted a video in response to this. Another YouTube user came through and posted a comment saying that she was going to do a response video to this video that she just posted on YouTube. And not to name names, but this YouTube user, she's not as popular, but she did sort of go viral, at least within the black sector of YouTube. As well, she was featured on World Star at one point for criticizing black men, I believe. And I'm familiar with both YouTube users, by the way. All right. So this YouTube user posted a response video, and she did like a live stream. And basically, she was just saying like black women should not be defending this black infant male, this dark-skinned black infant male, because dark-skinned black infant females don't get defense. So why should you defend this child, right? And so what if his mom said that she's his mom? She can say that, like, you ain't his mom, you didn't birth him, right? And pretty much kind of like low-key defending the mom and attacking people who criticize the mom, right? And then the YouTube user who talks about colorism saw the video. So then she wound up doing a very extremely impromptu live stream video to address the situation, and sort of a response video, pretty much. And her response video basically, saying like, she didn't appreciate the energy in the video, because she felt like the video was directed at her, which I think partially it was, but also just partially in general, just the black female collective. And I felt like You know, and also I did catch that YouTube user live. I catch the response from the Colorism YouTube user. I did catch that response. And usually I don't catch her live streams that much. But I just happened to catch this one, so it must have been, you know, God at work with that. But I saw the live, and she in the live she did sound triggered, understandably so, because she's just feel like people are misconstruing her, sometimes purposely, and she's getting criticism, and sometimes it's just sometimes it's like no matter how you phrase something, right, it gets misconstrued and it's becoming triggering for her. And sometimes I just kind of do think, sometimes I think we as like YouTube users who create content sometimes may need to avoid reading the bottom half of the internet, aka the comment section sometimes, you know, because I've kind of had situations like that happen to me too. But to bring it back to topic, so the World Star YouTube user, or the YouTube user who was featured on World Star, like, I'm familiar with her content, and I've never seen her say anything bad about the Colorism YouTube user. In fact, I've usually heard her only say positive things, and even at one point even said, hey, subscribe to that YouTube user, subscribe to her, go support her. So yeah, it was a little odd to see that happen, and I do think that sometimes we have to learn how to amicably disagree with each other. So, 'cause sometimes it ain't really even, don't really even call for all that, right? You know, and I do appreciate people who come through my channel and amicably disagree with me, you know, who respectfully disagree with me, who just agree to disagree, you know. I know sometimes some of you guys, come through and just be like, hey, I normally like your content, I normally agree with you, but this time I just can't rock with you. But it's okay, right? I'll catch you on the next one, right? And I appreciate that, you know. And I think sometimes we just need to, other a lot more people need to adopt that mentality, you know, because we're not going to agree on every single thing. We are not going to agree on every single thing, but I do think that some things are like deal breakers, and it's like some things we just have to agree on. But I'm not sure if this particular situation is one of them. But maybe for some women this is a deal breaker, and also I do take a lot of what that YouTube user who was featured on WorldStar, I do just take a lot of her content with a grain of salt. Some people may take it to be extremely literal. Perhaps it is meant to be extremely literal. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so that's the situation. Let's see what else I can talk about. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, one more thing. In regards to this whole beauty in the dark skinned bee situation, I feel like the men who get caught up in this are either who may feel a hit to their side because of this. They're not going to come out and criticize the light skinned, mixed biracial, non-black women who engage in this. They're not. They're going to just ignore it or sweep it under the rug, let it slide, whatever. They're not going to really address it. And they're not going to do that because then at one point or another, the focus is going to shift to them. And it's going to be like, well, why are you with these women? Why are you pursuing these women if you know that this is a possibility, right? If this is a good chance of them, engaging in some type of fuckery like this, or being involved in some type of fuckery like this, right? And as well, I do think it, goes back to the whole King Kong syndrome that I've spoken about before. Like, a lot of these dudes do kind of suffer from King Kong syndrome, and very much really, really, you see, even when it's like, a hit to their side, and you know, um, knocking their phenotype and this, that, and the third, they still want to be with these women, right? Like, it's very much like King Kong, just going through to the fullest extent to be with this like female, right? You know, the beast, King Kong, pursuing the beauty, who would be that white female in that situation. You know, that's why it's Beauty and the Dark Skinned Beast. You know, and that's why this situation is like that, right? So I think I said all I have to say. I've gone on for long enough. So my bad. But thanks for watching if you watched all the way to the end. And let me know what you guys think. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.